We'll do our best to respond to these questions during the presentation as best as we can. As a reminder, we are covering general information about the region planning process, which has just started in regions 5, 6, and 8. So please hold those specific questions that are only related to your region. We will be sharing individual region contact email lists at the end of the presentation so that you can reach out to these teams for answering your additional questions. And lastly, if you need any assistance from staff during the meeting, you can click on the chat button and type your message, and we'll do our best to help you. So
Okay,
for
Christine, is
yeah,
it time to
go
start?
ahead.
Hit the record button.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
I think it's being recorded.
There we go.
Oh,
good.
Yes, there we go. Thank you so much. Alrighty, we also do have the caption feature on if you need to see the closed captions for this presentation. Alrighty, so with the agenda, we're going to cover that overview of the region plans. We'll give a brief rundown of what the stakeholder advisory committees are and how to apply. And you'll see a demonstration on how to add your comments to the feedback map. Then we'll have the Q&A session that I mentioned a minute ago. And finally, we'll cover next steps and other opportunities for involvement. Today with us, we have staff from the Office of Planning and Zoning. We're excited to share with you the information and this interactive online tool. We have Mark Burt, who leads the Research and GIS section. We have Michael Stringer, who's with Long Range Planning, and I'll be your host and facilitator. I'm Christine Duval. I'm also with Long Range Planning. We also have Debbie Blackburn behind the scenes to help with meeting tech support. Before I hand things over to Mike, we have a quick poll for you. So we're going to allow you just a moment to respond. This is great. Thank you for your feedback. I'm seeing that most of you did receive that letter that the Office of Planning and Zoning sent about the region plans, and you've also visited your region plan website. So that is fantastic. All righty. And those are the results. And with that, we'll get on with the scheduled programming, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Michael Stringer.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Christine. And I'm really impressed at those numbers. This is a very engaged, proactive group. I'm really impressed. So I'm just going to give you an overview of some of the key elements of the region plans. And for some of you, this might be routine, but it's always nice to kind of hear it described, because sometimes we can lose ourselves in our own text here on planning and zoning world. Again, I'm Michael Stringer. I'm a senior planner with the Office of Planning and Zoning. I actually grew up in Anne Arundel County. I've developed most of my career working on the West Coast and recently moved back, and happy and honored to be working with these communities on these region plans and our community planning efforts. As we begin to talk about the region plans, I first want to put them in the context of the General Development Plan, which is the countywide plan for land use and growth management. That's called Plan 2040 in its latest iteration. It's a policy document for land use planning that looks over a 20-year time horizon, so hence the 2040. We were developing it in the year 2020. It includes a vision, goals, policies, and strategies for land use and land use-related topics like water resources, open space, transportation, housing, recreation and parks, and economic development. The topics are organized in 4 major sections of the plan. They're the natural environment, built environment, healthy communities, and healthy economy. And the Planning 2040 process included extensive community outreach. There was in-person meetings. We went online when COVID hit, had a lot of online questionnaires and online forums. And then as we went through the adoption process, we had public hearings with the Planning Advisory Board, and then the County Council has the ultimate authority to adopt these plans. And the County Council did adopt this plan in May of 2021. I want to emphasize there were three key themes that emerged through the discussions of Plan 2040. Go back to that slide for a moment. That we heard loud and clear from the public that they wanted to see the county grow smarter, greener, and more equitable. In our county planning documents for the last 30 plus years, we've been talking about the potential for smart growth. That's kind of the big policy framework for the state of Maryland. And as I said in previous Anne Arundel County plans, that how do we focus our growth and development where we have infrastructure near our employment centers so people don't have to commute so far, while at the same time preserving our rural areas and natural resources. Growing greener. Again, emphasizing protection of our natural resources with a special focus that we heard a lot about over the last few years about the issues of development on peninsulas, the constraints of developing on these where we're surrounded by water with one way in and one way out, and the need for green space around the entire county to make sure that our more urbanized areas also have access to parks and trees. And to be more equitable, to make sure that we're thinking through the implications of our land use decisions, so that way we have opportunity for everyone in the county. Next slide, please. One of the key pieces of implementing Plan 2040 are these region plans. For those of you who've been following county planning for a long time, you remember the small area plans that were developed in the late 90s, early 2000s. The region plans kind of build on those plans. We've changed the geography a little bit. The planning department was a lot more robust at that time. We couldn't handle doing 16 of the small areas. So in the Plan 2040 process, we asked the community and the citizen advisory committee that was set up for that process to help us kind of lay out a different geography that would still make sense for the county, but have fewer of these areas to plan for. And we came upon 9. Unfortunately, whenever we do these county lines, it's not council districts. It's not the same as the school districts. It's not police districts. All these lines get drawn based on different reasons and rationale, so they never quite line up, which can be confusing. But these lines were drawn based on input from the community and trying from a planning perspective to kind of keep communities together, places that are adjacent to each other, that share a lot of facilities, that share access, use major things like roadways as boundaries. We're focused tonight on regions 5, 6, and 8. So 5 is our Odenton, Gambrels, Woodwardville, Crofton area. 6 is Millersville, parts of Millersville, and Crownsville. And 8 is the interior of South County. So going from Defense Highway down to the south to the county border, from the Patuxent, generally over to Route 2. We've approached these 9 plans in sets of 3. So the first 3, regions 2, 4, and 7. 2 of them actually have been adopted, and region 4 is currently in front of the county council. Regions 1, 3, and 9 have been active over the last year, there's been stakeholder advisory committees meeting for those, and materials going out as draft for the public to review. And those will be scheduled to go to the council early next year. These plans all have similar structures and purpose. They include an evaluation of the community's assets and needs, try to develop consensus around the shared vision for the future, and think about neighborhood-specific strategies. So that countywide general development plan thinks big picture about things like transportation and housing. And what we really want to try to get to with these region plans is more at a community neighborhood level of how do we address issues like the environment. So we're looking for feedback from the public and from the stakeholder advisory committees that will be set up about what are the most important areas for conservation. What areas do you see as problematic, like that have flooding issues? To talk about issues of housing, to discuss where the most appropriate places and most appropriate types of housing in the different parts of the county are. And there's always this tension that we face of whenever you look at the opinion polls in Anne Arundel County, that everyone's top concern is always transportation. And there's always the concern that, well, more housing means more traffic. But at the same time, we've got this increasing housing affordability crisis. So we're trying to foster that conversation with communities about how do we try to balance those things. And transportation, as I mentioned, this is a great opportunity for the community to come and weigh in on where are those pain points, where are the intersections that you're seeing the biggest challenge with, where are the improvements that you would like to see in mobility around your neighborhood, from road improvements to sidewalk and bike path improvements. And to think about community facilities, where I've heard a lot of discussion, especially around South County, about the needs for a new community center to serve that area. To think about park improvements up in the Crownsville area. We've got a lot of ongoing park projects right now. So there's a nice forum to kind of talk about them across those different projects, see how they interact. And economic development, to think about, what are the areas that we need to focus on redevelopment, to pinpoint those old commercial centers that you want to see revitalized, to see, think about opportunities to support local businesses. So as we, one thing I want to mention more on the slide is that the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, we've said that word before. This is required by Plan 2040, and it's in the county code that we set up these committees of up to 15 people to represent and work with the county planning staff to develop these plans. And the intent is that these communities be diverse and representative of homeowners, renters, folks that have lived there for a long time, people who have recently moved, businesses, as well as community associations, that we can get kind of the diverse opinions of each region represented in a group that work collaboratively together over the course of about a year to develop these plans. And later on this meeting, we'll touch on the application process for that. Important to note that while you apply, Office of Planning and Zoning staff will help review the applications, and then it's ultimately the county executive and county council that appoint the committees. And public engagement is foundational to all this work. So let's dive in a little more on that front. One thing to think about on these region plans too is we've talked about the general development plan and the region plans. This diagram tries to illustrate how these different things coordinate together. The general development plan is kind of our big policy driver that sets our context over a long range time. Then to the lower left of that, we have in this diagram geographic master plans. So like these region plans, the town center plans for Odenton, Parole, Glen Burnie, help give more specific guidance in specific areas. Then we also have a set of what we call functional master plans. We have a transportation master plan, pedestrian and bike master plan, water and sewer master plan. The schools puts to AACPS, the Anne Arundel County Public Schools, puts together an educational facilities plan. Our Department of Recreation and Parks puts together a land preservation, parks and restoration, recreation plan. And so those plans tend to be more technical, but kind of focused on those systems that the county operates. And the region plans are a nice way for those to kind of stitch together. Again, while the transportation plan is going to be solely focused on looking at roadways and mobility, they're going to be thinking about land use, but in the region plans, we can think about how all those things tie together with economic development, housing, etc. Another thing to think about on the right-hand side of these and our county code. So plans are plans. They're out there setting the agenda for what we want to do in the county. They get implemented through updates of the county code. Those are the rules and requirements for development. That includes our adequate public facilities ordinance. So we always get questions these planning processes about, well, what are the impacts of this change or that change going to be? And while we can evaluate that kind of at a big system level, it's really when a development project comes through and has a specific proposal that we can evaluate things like the traffic demand, the water sewer demand, and impacts on the environment as well. Another big implementing measure of these plans is the capital facilities program. So that's where the county budget invests in public improvements. And I think that's one of the greatest opportunities for the public engagement in these region plans is to be able to kind of put things on the agenda that you want to see the county fund, to be able to identify in these plans that, hey, it's important for us to have a park improvement here, a road improvement there, and then to be able to, if that can get adopted by the county council, then can, as years go by, hold the county accountable to say, hey, this was approved in our plan. We need to make sure this gets implemented. Okay, next slide, please. Now, the overall process and timeline. These plans take about 2 years to be developed and adopted. We began the planning process for regions 5, 6, and 8 at the beginning of this year. And we begin internally with doing research, reaching out to our sister departments and agencies, collecting demographic data on land use and permitting to understand what the dynamics and trends, and also engaging the public. So we've been out starting to conduct interviews with local stakeholders, coming to community events. Like we were recently at the Crofton Festival on the Green down in South County at resource fairs, up in Crownsville at some community meetings there, listening in on what's going on around the Crownsville Memorial Park as well. And you'll see planning and zoning out at a lot of these festivals and events. And I'd like to encourage folks who are on the call tonight, if you have a community association or HOA, or if you know of an event that you'd like to see us at, please reach out to us, and we'd love to be able to attend and talk in person in smaller groups. The advisory committee's applications process will happen this summer. Applications are open now and they will close on June 30th. They'll be appointed by the fall and they're scheduled to have a kickoff meeting in October. So from October of this year through June of 2025, county staff and the stakeholder advisory committees will be meeting on a monthly basis, and they'll be charged with collaborating to develop a vision for the long-range future of the region and develop draft strategies of how you can implement and achieve that vision. Other key pieces of this are that we update the planned land use map and the zoning map. So with that, and I know this gets a lot of people's attention, we will be accepting applications from property owners for zoning changes. That process will start in the fall, in October through the end of the year. We'll accept applications from property owners. The county will evaluate those and then share them with the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, who will also evaluate and make their recommendations. And then that all comes out to the public for review. And after the public gets to have its say, we'll amend and reconcile things and bring it forward to the Planning Advisory Board. And that's an appointed board that operates countywide, and they review all of our master plans and the capital budget. They host public hearings that everyone can attend and express their opinions. And then they'll make their recommendations, and then there'll be a final version of the plan that goes forward to county council. And the county council is scheduled to see these be early in 2026 by the time it gets to them. And the county council does have the ability to amend the plans. They will also host public hearings. That's a critical part of the process to make sure that your voice is heard at county council. If you have any questions, issues that haven't been resolved through the process before then, to contact your council members. They have the ability to amend it and adopt it. And then eventually, after adoption, it gets signed by the county executive. And then throughout this whole process, we conduct outreach. And our outreach efforts are designed to kind of follow and track along with the process. That in the beginning, we want to start with wide open-ended questions just to understand what the community's concerns are. And we're building on work that's been done before. So we're looking at the old small area plans. We're looking at input from recent plans, like when Parks updated their plan and when the pedestrian and bike plan walk and roll was adopted. We're looking at the input that you gave then and trying to get the pulse on what's the latest thing. Are these sentiments continuing? Are there new ideas that are popping up? So the first things you're going to see from us are just very open-ended. We had a very brief 2-question community questionnaire on our website that was open from on the region hub sites. That was open from May to June. That just closed, and we just opened up these feedback maps that we'll demonstrate for you tonight. These are also open-ended, but allows you to kind of specifically put a dot on a map to say, I've got a concern about this area. This is something I want to see fixed, or I've got a great idea what we can do over here. And that really helps getting to the specificity of exactly where we want to see changes occur. We're also, as I mentioned, reaching out and conducting interviews with stakeholders, again, trying to have more in-depth discussions with small groups. And then we're attending community events like festivals and fairs. Next slide, please. As the planning process progresses, we're going to have more specific questions and requests that come out. And we'll try to dovetail these things so that way we're doing things online and in person. Doing it online is great because we're allowed to reach people more broadly and they can access it whenever it's convenient for them. But we know there's also no replacing kind of in-person conversations. So the general flow of this will be to think first about the vision. What are the big picture ideas when you think about Crownsville or South County or Odenton, Gambrels, and Crofton? Where would you like to see? What would you like to see those places look like in 20 years? So we'll have some questionnaires to get thoughts on that. And then as the committees start to meet, we start to dive into details. The big topics that we tend to see come out are issues about the environment, housing, and transportation. So as the committee develops strategies on those, we're going to try to roll them out as soon as we can for public review. The idea of that is to break them into pieces so that way you're not having to review 50 strategies at once that cover the whole plan, but rather kind of as the plan's being evolved, get as real-time of feedback from the community as we can. And to kind of break it down into smaller pieces to make it less demanding for people to take a survey or answer a questionnaire. And as I mentioned, the zoning maps will also be updated through this process. And the general schedule is that, as I said, the applications from property owners will be accepted in the fall. Then by next summer, in the springtime, the stakeholder advisory committees will review them. And then by the summer, they'll come out for the public to review. And then again, the Planning Advisory Board review would happen in the fall of 2025 with opportunities for public hearings, county council by late 25, beginning of 2026. So as we think about the public engagement, you guys are very familiar with your communities, so we need to kind of share what we've heard so far, and hopefully this resonates with you as we think about regions 5, 6, and 8. Next slide, please. In in the Odenton, Gambrills, Crofton area, and Woodwardville, we hear a mix of opinions. There are folks that love that there's the diversity of the area, which there is, right? We go from the Odenton town center to our more rural areas around Gambrills, and so there's a lot of people that love that diversity. That you've got people of different ages and stages of life, different household sizes and styles and cultures, and we also hear comments saying, "Hey, there's been way too much growth, way too fast around here." And for those of you who have to travel up and down the Route 3 corridor, that's where that focus always lies, right? Region 6 in the Crownsville, Millersville area, we always consistently hear from folks up there about how they love the kind of quiet rural landscape and they want to keep it that way. And that Crownsville, in its geography of being the center of the county geographically, provides us easy access to commute, to shopping, to Annapolis, to the rest of the county, and beyond. But again, concerns about growing traffic, especially as you think about like General's Highway. And Region 8 in South County, they've had their mantra for years of keep South County rural, and county policies are layered upon each other in different ways to help try to preserve that. So the strongest things we always hear, preserving farmland, making sure we're preserving our open spaces in rural area. But then we also hear kind of the challenging issues about how difficult it is to get around when you have few roads that are narrow and often winding, limited existing sidewalks and paths for bikes and pedestrians. So those are kind of a few of the kernels of ideas of the hundreds of comments we've received already, but I wanted to share that thought with you to make sure that you guys appreciate that we are listening and reflecting back, and these plans are intended to really resonate with community's desires, and when they work really well, they will marry the kind of the technical expertise of the county staff that are subject matters in these different issues of transportation and housing and economic development, et cetera, with the local knowledge, because nobody knows these communities like you guys do. And with that, let me pass it on to Mark to share a bit about these community feedback maps that we mentioned.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Michael. The communities have provided some great feedback already, and we're looking for some more. So we've, again, developed feedback maps that we're looking for your input on. So I'm going to exit out of here and show you how to get to our wonderful feedback maps. So if you come to the region planning webpage at aacounty.org and scroll down a little bit, and you can see there's some information about the Stakeholder Advisory Committee. We'll get into that in a second. The second attention grabber here is for our feedback maps. So we'll look at Region 6 feedback map here. And what that does, it takes us to our hub sites. And the hub site is the one-stop shop for our region plans. It's where you can find information on the current happenings, meeting notes, almost anything that's going on in the region, you can find it here. Scroll down a little bit in the yellow section here, you can see the Explore New Community Feedback in the feedback map link. We'll see that in a second. I'm going to hand it over to Christine to talk a little bit about the Stakeholder Advisory Committee application process.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, as Mike mentioned earlier in the presentation, these are appointed committees that consist of up to 15 members. And those would be residents of the region, people who own property in the region, or people who have an interest in land use planning in the region. And like Mike said, we want to hit as many diversity factors as we can. So we're looking for longtime residents, people who just moved in, homeowners, renters, business representatives, and representatives from different areas of employment throughout these regions. Now, Mark just opened up the application that is the beginning screen. If you are curious to see all of the questions that are in this application, as he pointed out earlier, there is, there are these links on the hub sites, and you can see that there's that link to the application. Then if you're questioning, is my address in region 5 or is it in region 8? I'm not sure. You can go ahead and click that region planning areas map and input your address there and see which region you're in. We also have the committee procedures. So these are the procedures that each of the stakeholder advisory committees follow throughout the process. We have a region plan handbook that covers the region planning process. And then we also have an overview for the SAC. And that includes, if you get to the 5th page of that, it has all of the questions that you'll find in the application so that you can think through those before you start the actual digital application. And just a reminder, if you do need assistance with completing this application, please reach out to the Office of Planning and Zoning, and we're more than happy to provide that support for you. Oh, Mark, you are on mute. You muted yourself to be courteous, and now you're
Thank you. And thanks for that information on the Stakeholder Advisory Committee application process. All right, so let's get into the feedback map here. So we'll click on the link for the community feedback map. And since we're in region 6, it's going to open the region 6 map. The pop-up there, or the splash screen here that you see will provide you a little bit of information while the map loads behind. It tells you how to add add comments by using the plus comment button. And it gives you some information on what you can add. You can add love it to your favorite places, fix it, any challenges that need to be addressed, and dream it, any future improvements or ideas that you have about the area. A little disclaimer here, the Office of Planning and Zoning reserves the right to remove obscene comments. Any email addresses provided will not be displayed or given to third parties, and any information may be subject to Maryland Information Act requests. So getting into the main map here, you can see it opens up with the region boundary outlined in red. I'm going to highlight some of the tools here. The plus sign will zoom in on the map. If you click on that, you can, if you have a mouse with a center button, you can also roll it back and forth to zoom in and out. The little house, or the default extent, will take you back to the zoomed out extent of the region, and the minus button will zoom you out also. We do add a locate me button. If you are on a mobile device and have location services enabled, it will find your location for you. You can search an address or a place by clicking on the eyeglass icon. And you can see what's active in the map by opening the legend. You can see the different comment icons, the region boundaries, and any other boundaries that we have in the map. You can also change the base map if you want to see a different view underneath. There is aerial imagery and a hybrid imagery, which would give you some road labels. And currently it's on the community street map. So how do you add a comment to this map? Well, you click on this blue bar, the plus comment button, and it'll open a dialog box. You can place an address in or select your location if you are on mobile and have location services enabled, or you can click right in the map itself. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and I'm going to leave a point on the map. And so I am commenting here in Crownsville at Bacon Ridge. I'm going to love it, and I'm going to add the comment, great trail system. Now there is if you are entering a longer comment, there is a character limit of 1,000 characters. And spaces do count as characters. So to continue the process, you would enter your name, your email, and if you would like to add a photo or any other document, you can browse and add it. Click the blue report button to submit, and it adds your point to the map. And since we're doing a demonstration tonight, I'm not going to add my point to the map, so I'm going to click cancel. But if you did add a point to the map, it would come in and it would have the symbol for if you love it, like it, or love it, fix it, or dream it. So we'll look at this comment here. It's a fix it comment. So this comment is, would appreciate some speed control on Harold Harbor Road. So if you read that comment and you agree with that person, you can click the heart button and agree with it. And if you would like to provide some additional comments or continue the conversation, you can leave a reply also. Clicking will all open the comment dialog box, and you can enter your comment, your name, your information, email address, and attach an image, and then submit your comment. If we zoom back out to the default extent, to go back to the comment list, just click the back button in the top left corner, and you can scroll up and down the comment list to see any of the comments. Anytime you click on a comment, it will zoom to it. It will provide the comment, and this one actually has a photograph attached with it. And some agrees. People actually commented back and agreed 100%. If you want to see the information that's displayed at the beginning in the splash screen, you can click on the question mark icon, and the splash screen box will pop back up, and you can review any of that information again. So that concludes our demonstration of the region feedback maps. If you do have any questions about the feedback maps or the hub sites, please reach out to the region teams, and you can. We will be providing those email addresses at the end of the presentation. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Christine for the question and answer session.
Thank you, and I made sure to unmute myself. Alrighty, so I'm going to check on those questions that were submitted during the registration process. And one of those has to do with the involvement of the stakeholder advisory committee members and how they are supposed to engage with their representative organizations and community interests. So that is one of the requests we have for these committee members, is that they are charged with learning about the process. Now, just a reminder, you don't need to know much about what's going on specifically with planning and zoning. You need to be an expert in your community. That's what we're asking for these committee members. One of the things we do throughout the meetings with these stakeholder advisory committees is we educate them on all of the topics that Mike covered earlier. So you do not need to be an expert in planning and zoning to apply, though we do want you to promise that you will take the information that you learn to your communities and get their feedback, so you can then bring it back to the committee and make sure that those voices are heard as well.
Yeah, and Christine, if I can add to that,
Sure.
And someone just commented in the Q&A or in the chat about what's the time commitment for the advisory committees. So it is a big commitment. The advisory committees meet approximately monthly. We've tried to schedule it basically to fit like a school year. So they start meeting in October and should be done by June. So it's a series of meetings about once a month. There's a couple extras that might get sprinkled in as to make sure we can cover everything in enough detail. We schedule these meetings to be about 3 hours long, because these topics get very in-depth, and we want to make sure that we've got the time to think through and have discussions. Everyone gets their voices heard and gets to kind of work through issues. So we can expect, kind of 3 hours of meeting time a month, plus some homework in between. We prepare a set of briefing papers that are given to the Stakeholder Advisory Committee and posted on the hub site so the public can see as well, where we synthesize information on these issues. So for example, I see a question that came through about kind of where you find information about water and sewer. There is a very extensive, 300+ page county water and sewer master plan. we'll distill that down to what the key pieces are that are relevant to that region and kind of the questions that are kind of most at stake for land use planning for that space, and distill those more down into like 10 to 20 page fact sheets with a lot of maps and graphs in them, to try to distill this complex stuff and make it accessible and digestible. So there's homework between the meetings, and then tying into the a responsibility of the stakeholder committees to help represent their communities. That's a tough thing to ask, but we do ask that, as you come in and apply, we're asking you, how are you already connected to your community? What organizations or associations or groups are you part of? And we're asking the committee members to just help share information out. If you're active with a community association, if you're active with a sports organization or a church, community of faith, that you kind of take the information that you're learning and the information that the county produces to help with public outreach and help spread that information out. There have been some who've commented saying that, oh, these people should knock door to door. And that's really too much to ask. We think of a volunteer. So we're just hoping that they continue to be active in their community, but they are volunteer positions. It's not full-time paid that someone is going to be doing this. So there's kind of a healthy respect for the limits of what we can ask of volunteers in that position. And for those who think that, geez, that's a lot too much of a commitment for me, we do have this robust public involvement program around this too. So that's not the only way to participate. We've had folks who have been very engaged and have a lot of influence on the region plans that have already been developed, who are community members who would drop into a couple of the meetings, who would track the meeting notes or watch the videos, or just comment in on the questionnaires and follow the process that way, or come to events. Being on the stakeholder advisory committee is not the only way to have influence in these processes, and we know it's not the right fit for everybody. It's tough to be able to manage that kind of time, that kind of recurring evening meeting if you've got kids at home or if you're working 2 jobs. So we're trying to make sure we're having a diverse outreach approach. That way we're getting different voices in.
Thank you. Yes, and I see lots of great questions coming in through the Q&A. As a reminder, please only use the chat to hosts and panelists if you are asking a question about a tech issue and you need support that way. Otherwise, please put your questions into the Q&A feature.
There's one I'd like to pick up there that someone just wrote in, saying that they think the meetings will be closed. The meetings are open to the public. We follow the Maryland Open Public Meetings Act. So all the meetings are open to the public, and we record them and post them online for people to watch later as well. So if it's convenient to come and attend, you can, and each meeting has an opportunity, has a public comment period where people can just stand up and speak their mind, or later you can watch it. If it's more convenient for you, you can watch the video or read the meeting notes later.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Alrighty, so back into the questions we received. Let's see, we have, so what does the rezoning consist of, and how do I know which zoning is actually beneficial to me?
Yeah. The zoning ends up being kind of the most, I think that people get most interested about these plans, right? So I think everyone's aware how big of an implication this has on their communities. So kind of start with, why are we doing the comprehensive rezoning? Why are we letting owners just apply for a change? The county has a tradition, as every other county in the state has a process for open-ended applications for zoning changes. There's a couple different ways underneath the county code that you can apply for a change. One is administrative hearings, and these can happen at any time, and there's some very specific rules that basically you have to demonstrate to an administrative hearings officer in kind of a quasi-judicial setting that there's been a mistake in the map, or there's been such a significant change that a zoning change is merited. Then there's this comprehensive zoning, which has a more broader perspective of applications. And one of the big intents of doing it in parallel with the region plans is that we are doing this community outreach, that we're talking at the community level, that we're engaging this committee. So that way, ideally, more people get to have feedback on these changes. In Anne Arundel County, this comprehensive zoning has happened about every 10 years. It's not on a strict schedule. But the last time we did it was in 2011. And I think this is the 5th time since the 1950s that Arundel County has done comprehensive rezoning. And as we get into that process in the fall, we'll provide more information through the hub sites and share that out through public forums, as well as through emails and things that we'll send out that give folks a guide of what are the different options for zones, and we'll set up criteria that the county will use to evaluate those applications. And again, the process is the applications will be accepted in the fall, then county staff will review and analyze them and share them with the stakeholder advisory committees so they'll get the complete applications along with the county's recommendations. And the stakeholder advisory committees will review them, make their recommendations, and then it'll go out to the public for review. And that should be out for public review in basically this time next year, so in the summer of 2025. The public reviews then will take those comments into consideration and make another updated draft of the zoning map and the region plan that will then go to the Planning Advisory Board. And so the public will have the ability to comment to the Planning Advisory Board as well. So that'd be the second time the public can comment. And then after the Planning Advisory Board has their public hearings, they make their recommendations. Then a final draft of the plan is presented to County Council. And the County Council, again, hosts public hearings where the public can comment. That's kind of the third opportunity that the public has to be able to review and give their feedback. And one thing we're very, very intentional about how they structure it is, I know there can be a lot of fatigue in that when it's like review. I already gave you my comment 6 months ago. What's going on? But it's intentionally designed that each of those comments are actually to a different group, right? The first comment period is coming back to County Planning and Zoning. The second is to the Planning Advisory Board, and the third is to County Council. So, if Planning and Zoning doesn't agree, maybe the Planning Advisory Board will. So it gives the public a different audience if you're not liking the recommendations that the county is making. It's important to note too that the County Council's ability to comment on these happens after getting introduced to council. So they're not going to be going out and publicly making statements on these zoning applications. You'll hear their perspectives in public when it comes and gets introduced to the County Council at that last stage of the process.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. And you just covered a bunch of different questions that have been included in the Q&A. So appreciate that. All right, now to another one, a little bit about zoning, but it's also related to schools. So the question is, will this new zoning affect current school zoning?
Yeah, there's a lot of big planning processes that go along, and it's tough to keep them all straight. So actually, we added a slide here to give a reference, if we can skip to that, about 2 other kind of big processes that are going on right now. And one is the school redistricting. And Mark, if you can forward to the next slide, I'll show an image of that. So again, Arundel County Public Schools is a separately elected body than the county council and county government. But of course, we're all one community. We all work closely together, and what we do in one space affects each other. But the schools has been doing a major undertaking of a countywide redistricting, and they are doing it in 2 phases. The first phase was for the northern part of the county, and you can see the school clusters that addressed, and that was adopted by the school board last fall, and will go into effect this 2024-2025 school year in the fall. And the intent of the redistricting is to make sure that we balance out the seats in the schools. We have some schools in the county that are above what's called the state rated capacity. They give an estimate of, based on the school size and the resources, how many students it can hold, and that's forecasted out based on demographics of the student population, as well as development projects in the area. And we have some schools that are, again, over the state rated capacity, and some schools that are well under it, that have a lot of empty seats. So a big part of the redistricting is to try to balance that out, so that way we're efficiently using the resources of our public investments in schools. The second phase of the redistricting will address the southern half of the county, and you can see the school clusters listed there in the bottom right: Annapolis, Arundel, Broadneck, Crofton, Severna Park, South River, and Southern. Those clusters will be addressed in this second phase of the school redistricting. And that process kicks off at the beginning of next year, where this county school board will do their analysis and share out through public meetings and online forums options for how the school districts can be adjusted to try to balance out the needs of the schools. And then that ultimately gets adopted by the county school board. So again, the school districts are separate from, or I guess distinct from, the region plans, but of course thinking about where we grow and how we grow and our school capacity is an important connection to think about. Another planning process that's getting a lot of people's attention right now, and is right in the heart of Crownsville, is planning for the Crownsville Historic Hospital Memorial Park. And in a huge move, the county acquired this property, over 400 acres of land, including the historic buildings of the Crownsville Hospital. They acquired it in 2022 and have set up a planning process to think through what the future of that site could be. And the county executive has put forth a vision of that as a space of healing, a space of connection with nature, and a space of recognizing and respecting the legacy and history of that site. And there's a planning process that's underway. There's a set of committees. There's a consultant that's kind of shepherding the process. And there have been several sets of public meetings on that to kind of hear public input on what their ideas and concepts for that site are in the future. And my understanding is there'll be another set of community meetings with some draft ideas, draft plans coming out later this summer or fall for that. So the question got asked in one of these forums about how does that connect with the surrounding region plan. So the region plan won't dive into the details, say, of how a specific building on the Crownsville Hospital campus will be used, because that's being addressed by that plan. There's going to be a lot of recommendations from that plan that think about connectivity. For example, how does reuse of that site in the future affect transportation? So recommendations will kind of interweave between the region plan and that of how do we make sure that that site, say, has appropriate, bicycle access and car access, and should there be transit that brings to that site or not? Those will be questions that kind of will be at that interface and integration of the region plan and the Crownsville hospital plan. So thinking about kind of the surrounding area and how that site connects. And the websites for both of those processes are on that slide there that you can sign up for email lists to get regular updates on those and find out when they're going to have their next meetings focused on those topics.
Fantastic. All right, Mike. Yes, thank you. We did receive a few questions about how this overlaps with Crownsville, so appreciate you addressing that. All right, so favorite topic of many people we know of from doing the community questionnaire is traffic and traffic congestion. So the question is, how are you going to coordinate across regions to prevent further traffic congestion and traffic safety?
Yeah, that's a great question. And can we go back to the Q&A slide okay. And of course, that's always a top concern. So to be able to organize these things, we have to draw lines and have these boundaries, but we understand the boundaries are just lines on paper, that people move between these spaces for how they live and go to work and go to school. Internally, there's a lot of coordination that happens between the Office of Planning and Zoning, our Office of Transportation, Department of Public Works, and other departments, thinking through how these, looking at the studies of traffic counts and trip generation, and vehicle collisions, things like that, to understand kind of what's going on with these systems currently, to make sure that we're compiling and have an updated understanding of the status of current projects. Like obviously there's a major roadway project on Route 3 right now, adding lanes from St. Stephen's Church to up to 175, to make sure that that those plans are kind of integrated into the region plans we think about it, and to make sure that those plans that we're building on those previous studies. So, for example, when the state is doing their highway planning, and the county as well, they're looking at different projections of future growth, and they're modeling that to see what the transportation demand is going to be based on those growth models. So we can use those to help inform the plans. And thinking about those kind of intersections, right? Unfortunately, as that map lies between regions 5 and 6, it kind of the northern part of Route 3 is a borderline. So there may be a need to have a joint meeting, and we did this for regions up in the north part of the county by kind of BWI Airport and by Glen Burnie. We had them actually have a joint meeting to talk about some shared interests along those borderlines, and that may be something that evolves as an idea for the region 5 and 6 groups as well. So we're having a very public conversation, engaging the stakeholder committees and the public on that conversation. And we'll so there'll be, of course, as I said, like internal interaction and coordination around those issues, and we'll make sure that there's some very public spaces that we're kind of talking about those cross-boundary line questions and issues.
Thank you, Mike. All right, last question I think we'll have time to cover is, what elected officials decide or are responsible for the content of any region plans to be implemented?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the county council ultimately, has the authority to adopt our master plans and changes to our zoning map. And the county executive, then after adoption, the county executive signs. County executive does have a veto authority. And then if they do veto something, and this has happened in previous comprehensive zoning efforts, it's been a veto, then it can go back to council, and council can override the veto. The stakeholder advisory committees and public comments have a huge amount of weight. As you can tune in and see some of the county council meetings that are currently ongoing for Region 4 or ones that have happened for Regions 2 and 7. The county council has been very responsive to public comment, as well as to the thoughts and recommendations of the stakeholder advisory committees. So while they, by our county charter and county code, are the ones vested with that authority, the public voice has been, I would say, very loudly and very well heard and responded to in these planning processes. But that being said, there's always tension in the community too, right? There's always people who will support something and people who oppose. So it's not a monolith of public opinion usually on these situations.
All right, fantastic. And with that concludes the Q&A. Thank you so much for your thoughtful questions and for Mike's responses. Please keep those questions, thinking about this, keep that going. We do want to hear from you. As Mark demonstrated, the feedback map is a great place to add those specific locations to fix it, love it, or dream it. So please use that feedback map. The best way to get there is through the hub sites. But before I jump into that, let me just really quickly cover these next steps that we have for you. So we have that feedback map that Mark demonstrated. That is available through August 31st on the hub sites. And again, it's a unique feedback map for each region. So to go to the Region 8 hub site, you will not find the Region 5 feedback map. So make sure you're on the correct region hub site page to find your feedback map. We also, just a note on that, you are encouraged to enter information on regions where you may not even live. We say if you live, work, or play there. So if you live in Region 5 and you work in Region 6, don't think that you can only comment on the Region 5 materials. We absolutely want to hear your feedback for those other regions that you may cross into in your daily happenings. As we also touched on, the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, or SAC, applications are open until June 30th. Again, those are linked many places on our website, but the hub site is, of course, where I'll direct you to get the information there. We looked at that a little bit earlier. We have that committee kickoff meeting, so the SAC kickoff, they start in October, and those meetings happen monthly through June. And then we have the vision and strategy questionnaires. So that's the opportunity for the public to weigh in on the different vision statements and strategies that have been drafted for each of the regions. And that will be from December of this year through the summertime of 2025. All right, and I do have one more quick poll for everyone. Let's see if I can make this happen. All righty. Okay, here you go. So there's a poll now about those stakeholder advisory committee applications. We're asking if you're planning to apply. So go ahead and put in your responses. I see people are already selecting theirs. We have some SAC applicants on board today, I see. Fantastic. All right. And I'm going to end the poll and I'll share those results out. So you see that we have a handful of individuals who have already applied. We have some who have not yet completed that application. We have some who said they don't have the time to participate, and that is totally understandable. We do encourage you, of course, to continue to share your feedback either with the an SAC member that you know of who has been appointed, and also to give your feedback anytime you see OPZ out in the community, or of course online. All righty, so this is our last slide here. We made it to the end. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. I'll give one final plug for the website and the Region Plan Hub sites. You'll find all the information that you need at aacounty.org/regions. From that page, we do directly link to all the resources that we talked about today. You can also see the region plan links to those hub sites, and we have the email addresses to each of the region teams. So if you had a detailed question that was not answered tonight, please do reach out to your region team. Of course, we also answer the phone, so you can call us too and talk to us that way, or by emailing us through that email address that is the region number at aacounty.org. So of course, please keep up to date with what's happening in your region by monitoring the hub sites. And with that, we'll conclude the virtual forum. And again, I appreciate everyone for your time and attendance. Have a great evening.